Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. As a Michigan fan myself, it's been a busy last couple of days, and there's a couple of different storylines that we have to get into as it pertains to this Michigan program, not only on the recruiting trail, but in the transfer portal as well. I think Ty Haywood has dominated most of the discussion for us Michigan fans, and quite frankly, rightfully so. You look at all the storylines that we see playing out over the next couple of days and weeks. Ty Haywood's commitment, getting him to sign his paperwork to Michigan, by far the biggest storyline. And if that's all we get as Michigan fans over the next couple of days, I think a lot of us are going to be really happy. And we have some intriguing developments with the Ty Haywood recruitment as well. We'll talk about the two Notre Dame offensive linemen in the transfer portal, both of which it sounds like Michigan will be interested in. Before we get into it, as always, to the Michigan fans, most notably, when we talk about the Notre Dame offensive linemen, would love to hear the opinions from some of the other Michigan fans. I got some takes I want to get off my chest. I'm sure many of y'all have some takes on it as well. The beauty is we might not all agree. We might disagree a little bit. That's kind of the beauty of having these discussions. Appreciate y'all more than y'all know for rocking with the boys. It's been a very fun last couple of weeks talking the recruiting trail, talking the portal. The amount of support from the Michigan fans has been amazing. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into Ty Haywood. Now, I think a lot of us Michigan fans were hoping for a commitment coming out of the visit a couple of weeks ago. Obviously did not happen. The good news for us Michigan fans is it sounds like Ty Haywood is shutting things down from a visit standpoint. And that was probably the biggest concern, right? It has sounded like Michigan has kind of dominated this recruitment over the last month, had all the momentum going into the visit. From everything we read and see, the visit went well for Ty Haywood up in Ann Arbor. Going back down to the state of Texas, I think the biggest concern we had was, is he going to make a visit to Texas Tech? Is Texas Tech going to have the opportunity to make a last-minute pitch and keep Ty Haywood in the state of Texas? Doesn't end up taking the visit. As an outsider looking in, and I'm certainly no recruiting insider, I look at that situation and saying he's probably pretty confident with where he stands with Michigan. To me, it just kind of feels like a matter of time, whether we get a commitment over the next couple of days, whether he announces it when he's signing his paperwork in about a week. For us Michigan fans, him not taking another visit after the visit to Michigan, you got to feel pretty good about where Ty Haywood stands. And again, why we think this is such a big recruitment for Michigan is not only, again, stockpiling a five-star offensive tackle that has an extremely bright future. The way I look at Ty Haywood is this kid can immediately come in and be a member of the Michigan two deep going into 2025. And there are some question marks about how many tackles we trust going into 2025. Feel pretty good about Evan Link, feel pretty good about Andrew Sprague. Outside of that, how do we look at this tackle room? Ty Haywood, not only a massive commitment, true freshman coming in, but a guy that probably could be at least in the two deep and provide quality depth and competition immediately going into the 2025 year. Because you look at Ty Haywood, we talk about this all the time. Him and Andrew Babaloa, two five stars for kind of different reasons, right? Andrew Babaloa is a 5-star because the ceiling for this kid is astronomically high, but probably needs a year or two of development as a football player. Ty Haywood, I think, has a very high ceiling, but that floor is so freaking high too. Like it's hard for me to see Ty Haywood not being a very, very good tackle at the collegiate ranks. And it's hard for me not to see him be immediately ready to play because his polish as an offensive tackle, it's some next level stuff. I mean, you turn on the film, it looks like he's been playing tackle at the collegiate level for the last couple of years. Next one I want to talk about is Zahir Mathis. This was he was supposed to visit Michigan this weekend. That visit did not happen. It sounds like Michigan is going to go in a different direction here. Look, 6'6", 225 has a really good first step. Like, there are things you like about Zahir Mathis. I think there were also a lot of question marks there too. He's 6'6", 225. That's a slender frame, and I think the biggest question mark, especially where kind of Michigan wants to go with their edge defenders, being really good against the run, having heavy hands. That's kind of Lou Esposito's type of defensive lineman, especially out on the edge. That probably wasn't going to be Zahir Mathis. I'm not saying I wouldn't take him because I would probably ideally bet on those traits, but it was one, a developmental guy, the guy that probably doesn't see the football field for at least 2 years for Michigan, and number two, a little bit of a funky fit in terms of what Michigan wants to do on the defensive side of the football. Best wishes to Zahir Mathis. Probably looks like Florida State, Maryland. Now, the next conversation, the conversation that I think is probably most intriguing is Rocco Spindler, Pat Coogan, two Notre Dame offensive linemen that have starting experience hitting the transfer portal. And it sounds like Michigan is interested in both of them. And I would be surprised if Michigan ends up landing both of them, but it sounds like Michigan will be kicking the tires on both. Let's start with Rocco Spindler. Now, the update on the recruitment: visited Indiana this weekend, left uncommitted. He's going to be visiting Nebraska tomorrow. And from what Pete Nakos on 3 kind of gave us his 2 cents, and it says, all right, if he goes to Nebraska, leaves uncommitted, it sounds like he might be taking a visit to Michigan this weekend. So the thing to monitor here is, hey, does he commit to Nebraska on the spot over the next couple of days? My take on Rocco Spindler is, if you ask me to pick between Rocco and Pat Coogan, I take Pat Coogan because you get some position versatility. And quite frankly, watching some Notre Dame games back, I think Pat Coogan's probably the better pure football player as well. Now, you look at Rocco Spindler, you love the size. I mean, he is physically imposing at 6'5", 325. You kind of wish he played a little bit more physical. I feel like there are some reps where it's like, all right, you're 6'5", 325. I don't know if we're playing like 6'5", 325. There are some Michigan fans that in the comment section on Friday night said, hey, maybe we could give him a look at right tackle. I wouldn't be opposed to it, and the thing with Rocco Spindler is, one, he's never really played tackle at the college ranks, and number two, he wouldn't be coming into Michigan until the summer. And so that's a really quick turnaround to try to get him acclimated to that offensive tackle spot. Now, I think he has the frame to. The athleticism is probably a question mark. At the end of the day, I look at the inside of the offensive line. I feel pretty good about it. And I'll never, like, as a Michigan fan, and we all know this all too well, you'll never say no to a veteran, experienced offensive lineman that has played on a national championship caliber team down there at Notre Dame that's 6'5", 325. You ain't saying no to Rocco Spindler. I guess where I sit is, hey, if Nebraska wants to push their chips in to get a guy like Rocco Spindler, I don't know if I'm Michigan and I'm looking at the resource pool I have, is Rocco Spindler that guy where I'm pushing my chips in to match it? I don't know if that's the case. Now, you talk about Pat Coogan again. I think Pat Coogan one's a little bit better of a football player, but what I like more about Pat Coogan is the versatility you have. Being deep on the offensive line is really freaking important. And Michigan fans know this better than anyone. We always talk about Zach Center going down and Michigan's depth kind of just not skipping a beat in that 2023 year. That was because Michigan had a deep offensive line. If you want to make runs to the Big Ten championship, national championship, play 16 games of a college football season, you got to be deep along the lines of scrimmage. Pat Coogan, because he has that center guard versatility and has played at a high level at both center and guard, that versatility means something. And you kind of pull up the Michigan depth chart and look at it and say, all right, he could come in and certainly battle Greg Crippen. And I think Pat Coogan very well could win that center job from a guy like Greg Crippen, but he also could probably compete at guard too, where I think Giovanni El-Hadi has one of the guard spots locked up. The other guard spot kind of up in the air. I mean, you have a guy like Nathan Afobe, who I really like. You're bringing Lawrence Tatar from Division II. That's probably a question mark. And if I'm Michigan, I'm looking at Pat Coogan and saying, hey, that suddenly mitigates that question mark, because we know we're getting a really, really solid guard in Pat Coogan, kind of like a Josh Preeb last year for coming from Northwestern. I think it'd make a lot of sense. Sherrone Moore wants to make sure the offensive line is going to be a strength of this program. Wouldn't be surprised to see Michigan land one or the other. I probably lean Pat Coogan because I think he's a little bit better of a football player in that versatility. I completely get the Rocco Spindler fans because the ceiling's high. Now, the only question mark I have with the ceiling being high for Rocco Spindler is, I mean, he is a guy that is a 2021er. He's been in the college football landscape for a very long time. I guess where I come from is, if he has such a high ceiling, why haven't we seen it yet? And is he going to reach it at Michigan in 2025? that's probably where I stand. Again, I wouldn't, if we get both of them, more the merrier on the offensive line. That is certainly Sherrone Moore's motto. That's my motto on the offensive line, too. Biggest storyline for me, Ty Haywood. And the developments we're hearing with that sound like they're good developments. The Michigan commitment sweatshirt sitting right there on the chair. It's ready to come on at any moment. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And to the Michigan fans who are interested in a lot of recruiting talk, we're going to start ramping up them 2026 conversations pretty damn soon. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.